Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Brian Shields. Thank you for being part of Earth QC. I want to get to this. One of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world, period, is now erupting, and there are some signs there could be a catastrophic eruption out of this. This is El Popo. It is in Mexico, very close to Mexico City. Now, some schools are already closed. There's been airport issues, two big airports as you get toward Mexico City, on and off closures and delays with all the ash around with this currently erupting. They've been doing these evacuation drills nonstop. Issues, kind of secondary issues, which are major issues with the crops, dust-covered crops because of this erupting. And here's kind of that bird's eye view with this. And there are huge worries that this thing does have a catastrophic eruption really at any point. And I want to get to those levels, those alert levels with you and talk about what kind of eruption could take place. Currently erupting, and you can see that plume of ash, smoke, gases, rock all mixed in. This thing has been throwing rocks out of its crater. So we've been watching that, of course, very carefully. And again, they're going ahead with a lot of the evacuation drills, not so much the evacuations yet. Yesterday and the day before, certain villages, towns had church bells going, signifying the start of an evacuation drill. Those same church bells will signify, hopefully it doesn't happen, but will signify the mass evacuation that may need to take place if this thing does blow. And again, this is the concern. It's one of those things checking all boxes. Volcanoes aren't like short-term weather. It's not a guarantee when you're tracking a storm or a hurricane. A hurricane's easier to track, I should say. That's what I'm trying to say there. When you're dealing with a volcano, these things sometimes take time. But I mentioned when it checks all boxes, you see what's happening for yourself. I like to just show you the facts, exactly what's happening. That's what's happening. The seismic activities happening with it. It's occurring. So with that catastrophic eruption is a possibility, and that's why they're going ahead with the drills. And they're also shutting down some locations, not many, but let me get this, 7.5 kilometers or 12-mile radius around El Popo. That's not that big of an area. That's generally just the park, just the volcano itself. So they didn't shut down a big area, but again, they're going ahead with the drills, and they did up it. They just updated it to a phase 3 yellow alert, and I'll dive into that. But here's Mexico, and again, one of the big issues, again, one life matters, all lives matter. This, however, is in a very densely populated area, which is an issue for getting people to safety if this thing goes. Here's Mexico City, and this again is about 80 kilometers, even less in spots, just to the southeast of Mexico City. This is kind of a terrible situation. That volcano's been there. It's kind of been on and off over the years, but again, more so just over the last few days. And look at this map. This is Mexico. So you see Mexico. Where you see the darker shading, that is the most densely part of Mexico. That is exactly where El Popo is. Hence these massive concerns. So in the history of El Popo, let me talk about that for a second. It has had plenty of eruptions. Volcanologists, scientists, there's ways we could take a look at prior eruptions, and that is important to know what could happen with a volcano in the future. And that's why this one has the potential of having a Plinian eruption. Those are the big time eruptions. Hasn't had one in the last 1,000 years. These have been a long time ago, but again, this thing has clearly been waking up over the last few decades. Those evacuation drills going. Some schools have been closed. Now, Mexico City, I mentioned 80 kilometers away. That's about 50 miles away. 25 million people in this kind of region, the smaller villages and towns, and of course the highly populated area of Mexico City. About 25 million people are on alert for this, and we're in a phase 3 yellow alert. Now, what happens in Mexico, they break it down by a stoplight scenario, a stoplight just to try to make it as clear as possible. So their alert system is based on a stoplight. Green, we're good. Yellow, we've got some big problems, and that's what we have now. And again, high alarm, high alert if we're in red, and we are one step away from that. So we're in yellow right now, but it's broken down further. Within these, there are phases. The yellow has a phase 1, phase 2, and now we are at phase 3. They did just raise it to a phase 3 yellow. So the next one would be the red, and that would mean we've got a big eruption and people need to get the heck out. But again, it's not there at this point. It is that yellow alert. But boy, I'm thinking of the folks there. It is not easy, not only with so many people, but the means of different areas. It is simply not as easy as just getting the heck out. So hence, I wanted to do this video just to help create the awareness and let you you know what's going on out there. Now, this is a stratovolcano or a subduction zone volcano, what I typically like to call it. So you have this plate that kind of ducks under another plate. Where this happens, there's tons of heat, gases build up, there's a lot of melting. So that's a perfect spot to have a volcano, and that's what you have. But in these stratovolcanoes, these are more of the kind of classic cone-shaped volcanoes that you see kids trying to make in science projects. These volcanoes can have that Plinian eruption. That is similar to what happened decades ago back with Mount St. Helens. I like to use this as an example. That's a Plinian eruption right there. On top of it, it's hard to tell though, even if you get a sense that this volcano may blow, it's hard to tell exactly what happens when it does. Does it completely shoot out the top, or does a face of the volcano, a side of it, actually give way? And that's important because that will dictate, of course, the problems, the damage, where all that ash, lava, the rock, the debris, the slides, the mud, where all of that stuff goes. So again, it's a wait and see as far as that is concerned. But like Mount St. Helens, El Popo has the possibility of that Plinian eruption. That is the most explosive type of eruption, period. High ash cloud, massive, massive flows. And I mentioned again, those flows, where they go, obviously they try to find kind of valleys, streams, rivers, path of least resistance. But on the initial end of it, what side of the volcano does most of that come down? Does a face of the volcano kind of blow out? Now, these Plinian eruptions can reach up to 30,000 feet or 6 miles in the sky. That's 9,000 meters or 9 kilometers. So again, it has impacts around the region because that ash gets up there and it goes, has even impacts on the overall weather patterns, not just regionally, but globally. When you have a Plinian eruption, we've had eruptions that have impacted the hurricane season. So it's crazy how it's tied together. But the big issue with these and what we're seeing in El Popo, while it's starting to erupt now, what happens in this, the magma is sticky. It is thick, it is sticky, it is high viscosity in this, okay? So that's all building up in there. And what that does, it's really sticky and gloppy. That keeps the gases in there. So then you have the gases building up. There's no way for it to escape until it hits that point where it all wants to blow. Hence, you get that Plinian eruption. Let's hope that does not happen. I'll be watching this. I'll keep you posted on this. But as of now, again, it is a level 3, a phase 3 yellow alert on this, one step away from that highest alarm of being a red alert with this. So I'm going to be watching El Popo very carefully. My thoughts are with all those in the villages, towns, and around this and throughout Mexico City. We are thinking of you. Thank you for sharing the awareness about El Popo with me and being part of Earth QC, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.